You know that sound, right? That pop or crack from a spinal adjustment. But have you ever wondered what's really going on inside your body on a biological level? Well, today we're going way beyond the crack to look at the actual science. So, this is the big question we're diving into. For the longest time, the specific measurable changes happening inside our bodies after an adjustment have been kind of a mystery. We're about to unpack a really fascinating study that tried to get some concrete answers. And this brings us right to what the researchers themselves called a crack in the science. You see, while tons of people get chiropractic care for things like pain relief, the scientific community has had this big knowledge gap about what's happening biologically in the long run. Yeah, it's basically been a black box. We know something is happening, but what is it exactly? Well, we're digging into a recent study from the journal PLOS One that decided it was time to finally open that box. They looked at key biological markers for stress, our immune system, even brain function, to see what really changes. All right, so how on earth did they do it? Let's take a look at how these scientists designed their experiment to get some clear, reliable answers. This part's pretty cool. So the setup was a classic randomized controlled trial, which is pretty much the gold standard in medical research. They got 106 adults who had recurring spinal pain, randomly split them into two groups, and then for 12 weeks, they took samples and measured all these biological markers to see if anything changed. And here's the crucial part. The chiropractic group, they got the real deal, spinal adjustments 3 times a week. But the sham group, they went through the exact same motions, same room, same chiropractor, same positions on the table, but the final adjustment was simulated. There was no actual therapeutic force. This is so important for figuring out if the adjustments themselves are making a biological difference. Now get this. This is what tells you how good the study design was. At the end of it all, they asked everyone, hey, do you think you got the real treatment? And a staggering 94% of people from both groups said yes. That sham treatment was so convincing. This is huge because it tells us that any differences we're about to see are probably from the physical adjustment and not just a placebo effect. Okay, with a rock-solid setup like that, it's time for the juicy part. What did those blood, saliva, and hair samples actually show? Let's start with what was happening with the brain and our stress levels. First up is this protein called BDNF. The easiest way to think about it is like fertilizer for your brain. Seriously, it's absolutely vital for keeping your brain cells healthy, helping them grow, and supporting what we call neuroplasticity, which is just the brain's amazing ability to change and rewire itself. This was the main thing the researchers were watching. And whoa, the results were striking. Just look at this chart. After 12 weeks, the chiropractic group had a big increase in their BDNF levels. Meanwhile, the sham group, theirs actually went down a little bit. The difference between the two is just crystal clear. So here's the bottom line. The people getting actual chiropractic care ended up with way more of this brain-boosting protein. The study suggests this could be a sign that something is enhancing neuroplastic activity in their central nervous system. Pretty incredible. Okay, next up, let's talk about something you've probably heard of, cortisol. It's famously known as the stress hormone. The scientists here were really clever. They measured it in 3 different ways. They looked at saliva and blood to get a snapshot of current stress, and they looked at hair to get a bigger picture of chronic stress over the last few months. Now, the cortisol results are a little more complex, but they're fascinating when you break them down. In the short term, yeah, the chiropractic group had a little spike in salivary cortisol, which kind of makes sense. You're getting a physical treatment. But the long-term story was totally different. At the 16-week follow-up, their blood cortisol was significantly lower than the sham group, and that chronic stress marker in their hair also trending down. So we've looked at the brain and stress. Now let's switch gears and talk about the immune system. What happened to the body's inflammatory response during all of this? To get this, we got to talk about something called cytokines. Just think of them as tiny little messengers for your immune system. Some of them, like TNF-alpha, are pro-inflammatory. They basically sound the alarm and ramp up inflammation. Others can play different roles. And would you look at that? Another huge difference. This pro-inflammatory messenger, TNF-alpha, it went down in the chiropractic group, but in the sham group, it actually went up over the same 12 weeks. So what does this mean? It's a key finding. It suggests that the chiropractic care was helping to regulate and lower systemic inflammation. At the same time, the folks in the sham group, well, they actually showed signs of becoming more inflamed as time went on. But wait, there's a twist. Another one of these messengers, called IL-6, actually increased in the chiropractic group. And at first, that sounds bad, right? But the study has a really interesting explanation. They suggest it wasn't a sign of bad systemic inflammation. Instead, they think it was acting as a myokine. That's something your muscles release when you exercise. The theory is that the adjustments were like a targeted workout for those deep spinal muscles, kicking off a healthy local healing response. Okay, let's just pause and pull all this together. We've got changes in brain fertilizer, in stress hormones, in immune messengers. What's the big picture here? What does it all mean? Well, the study's own conclusion really nails it. They state that 12 weeks of care modulates biomarkers. In other words, it seems to be actively adjusting the dials on the very systems in our body that control brain health, inflammation, and how we handle stress. So why should you care? Well, it suggests that the benefits people feel might go way deeper than just, oh, my back hurts less. These biological changes point to the possibility of actually improving our resilience, our brain's ability to adapt, and our immune system's ability to stay balanced. It's a potential shift from just treating symptoms to maybe enhancing the body's own ability to regulate and heal itself. Now, of course, we've got to be good scientists here and mention the limitations. This was an exploratory study, and the number of participants wasn't huge. Not every single thing they measured showed a big change. And for sure, we need more research to confirm these findings and really connect them to specific health outcomes. But even with those caveats, this study opens a fascinating new door. It pushes the conversation beyond just bones and alignment and into the world of biochemistry and how our nervous system and immune system talk to each other. And it leaves us with this really cool thought. Could the future of managing our health be written not just by treating our symptoms, but by understanding and even influencing our own biology?